Welcome in to Daily Faceoff Live, your go-to source for everything hockey. Live every weekday at noon Eastern.
Welcome into another edition of Daily Faceoff Live. The week of just me hosting the show continues, and today my co-host is Matt Larkin. Matt, how's it going?
It's good, Tyler. I feel like I'm very takey today. I have a lot of takes ready for you, so I'm excited.
I like that. It was a quiet night in the NHL last night in terms of the number of games, but those two games delivered a lot of entertainment. So let's jump right into things and throw 2 minutes and 30 seconds up on the clock and start with the Pittsburgh Penguins' big win. It was the first half of the doubleheader last night and on national TV, both north and south of the border. So figured we should start with it. The Penguins end their 4-game slide. They get a big win over the Avalanche. This should give them a bit of a boost, right? You beat the defending Stanley Cup champions. Like I said, you do it on national TV. Matt, should give them a boost. Do you think it could last, or is this just a win and a team that's still going to be struggling?
It's just a win for me. I admit I didn't know they had this one in them going up against a Colorado team that has a lot of momentum these days. But if you look at the big picture with the Penguins, they're limping along right now. They're back. Every night it's going to be up and down from that last wildcard spot. But I'm just seeing this broken record effect year after year with this team. They have not won a playoff series in 5 years. And the reasoning is the same. This is the oldest team in the NHL. Average age is over 30. They are the third smallest team in the NHL. They have not changed their roster structure. We know what happens when you get to the playoffs. The refs put those whistles away. It's a different kind of game, and they get pushed out. So to me, when you ask me, what do I think of the game last night and the Penguins in this playoff hunt, I think you have to look bigger and think, what are we doing here if you're the Pittsburgh Penguins? And I wrote about it today in Daily Faceoff. To me, they're starting to remind me of the Detroit Red Wings, who had that 25-year playoff streak. At the end of that streak, you're limping along and you're just trying to make the playoffs. You're stuck in the murky middle. I'm seeing that with these Penguins right now. And I think you have to start wondering, is it a good thing to have this playoff streak as they're going for 17 years in a row? I'm not sure if it actually helps them in the long run.
It's like one of those things where you hear about people winning the lottery and then their lives get ruined because they go broke. It's like you want the 17-year playoff streak because all the good fortune that comes with it, right? All that success in the moment. But you're right, when you're trying to hold on to that streak for as long as you can actually have some detrimental effects. I think we've seen them make a couple of foolish moves over the last 12 months, but in the moment for them, they'll kind of probably just say whatever. I mean, there's a reason they keep pushing their chips in. They want to give Crosby, Malkin, and Letang and that core as many chances to potentially go on some deep runs as they can. An encouraging sign, I'd say, over their last couple of games is they're starting to really outshoot their opposition. Like the shots at 5-on-5 were 35-23 against the Colorado Avalanche. They're 44-17 at 5-on-5 against the Senators. They should have won that game if it wasn't for Dylan Ferguson standing on his head. Even the game they got outscored 6-0 against the Rangers, they still outshot them at 5-on-5. So maybe they're starting to go in the right direction. You give no hope to Crosby, Malkin, and Letang finding just a little bit of playoff magic at some point here?
I don't, because we say that every year. Hey, could they get a little bit of magic? They're squeaking in. They've overcome injuries. They still have that decent core, of course. Sidney Crosby still playing at an elite level, but it's not enough. And compared again to the Red Wings a decade ago, you still had Datsuk, Zetterberg, Lidstrom at the end. That core from the championship years was there. It still wasn't enough when there's too much mediocrity in terms of the depth part of the lineup all around you.
Fair enough. That's how the night started. It was a big win for Sidney Crosby and his Pittsburgh Penguins. And then it was time for Connor McDavid and his Edmonton Oilers to shine. And maybe I shouldn't even use the word shine because McDavid shone. The rest of the Oilers were kind of mid in that game against the Arizona Coyotes. They barely cracked 30 shots by the end of the third period, but number 97 did his thing. He started the scoring with goal number 59. He ended the night with goal number 60. Second straight year, we've had a player in the NHL hit the 60 goal mark. McDavid doing it in just 72 games. It's been a remarkable run for the Oilers captain. One of the most productive seasons in NHL history when you consider the era. Matt, is 70 possible still for McDavid with just 10 games to go?
How crazy is it that this is a legitimate question? And it honestly is. We know it is. It's legit. He's the fastest player to get 60. 72 games, beats Austin Matthews by 1 game. Fastest since Mario Lemieux, which was 27 years ago. And if you look at the pace, just McDavid's entire season, 72 game sample size, he averages 8.33 goals per 10 games. He has 10 games left. So if he's just humming along at his quote unquote average, that already puts him projected for 68 goals. And if you look at McDavid's career pattern, this guy is a finisher. He always has some kind of big milestone statistical benchmark to hit near the end of the season. He always turns it up. If you look at his career points per game in March, April, and May, it's 1.69. Oh, yeah. Every other month, it's 1.42. So he always turns it up. And if I have to place a bet right now, I kind of feel like he's going to do it because we've seen him go on these late season runs before. And how can you bet against Connor McDavid in terms of anything right now?
Yeah, he's gone on long goal streaks this year. He had 5 straight games from February 21st to March 5th where he scored multiple goals in every single one of those games, had 10 goals over a 5-game stretch. He can absolutely do it. He's shooting close to 20% this year, and he is ripping the puck as of late. That's the thing. You can tell he really wants it. 7 shots on net in back-to-back games for Connor McDavid. He could have scored 3 or 4 last night if a couple more bounces would have gone his way. The other thing, Edmonton's got some weak opponents down the stretch. Anaheim twice, San Jose twice, and Arizona once as well. There's 5 games where you could be like, hey, I could see him scoring 6 or 7 just in those 5 alone, right?
Absolutely. And the way he's playing right now, he's just so explosive. He could score 6 in a 2-game span and then just be walking to 70 by the end of it. He's just capable of anything right now. And I really think what we're seeing is the most dominant offensive player since Wayne Gretzky, not since Mario Lemieux, since Wayne Gretzky. He's on pace to win the scoring race by the biggest margin in 36 years.
Brendan in the YouTube chat says Draisaitl with 4 assists was not mid, and I would say Ryan Nugent-Hopkins with 2 goals was not mid either. I probably could have phrased that a little bit better. The Oilers' big guns were the big guns. The rest of the team just really wasn't there last night, but the Oilers get a win and have their 3rd 5-game winning streak of the season. Are they the best team in the Pacific? We're going to touch on that a little bit later with Cam Charron. Let's head out east, though, to your neck of the woods, Matt Larkin, and talk a little bit about the Toronto Maple Leafs, who have a date tonight with the suddenly hot Florida Panthers, 7-2-1 in their last 10. And this is a big game for the Florida Panthers. For Toronto, maybe not so much in terms of the implications in the standings, although they're trying to hold off the Lightning, I guess, for home ice advantage in round 1. But the Leafs, 5-4-1 in their last 10 games. Since the trade deadline, 18th in points percentage in the NHL as well. Things have not gone smoothly since Kyle Dubas made all those big changes to the roster. Scale of 1 to 10, Matt, how concerned are you with this little Leaf slump?
I would say an 8. I think they have been quite bad, straight up bad. I think 5-4-1 is generous in terms of the actual record. I'm not surprised they took a big beating from the Islanders earlier this week. Before the trade deadline, they were 4th in 5-on-5 expected goals percentage. Since the trade deadline, 29th in the NHL. They have been a terrible defensive team. And what you have to hope if you're a Leafs fan is just that this is experimentation by Sheldon Keefe. Like you said, Tyler, there isn't much to determine in the standings. And the Leafs have 9 healthy NHL defensemen that they're cycling through. They're experimenting with the 11-7 format, sometimes 7 defensemen. So if you're an optimist, you have to hope that this is just the Leafs being willing to take some bad on-ice results as they try to find their chemistry. But otherwise, there's just no way to sugarcoat it. This has been a bad hockey team since March 1st.
The one thing, you mentioned how poor they've been defensively, and they got a lot of NHL quality defensemen ahead of the deadline, but now they're trying to mix them all into the lineup. Do you think, is there maybe something to be said? There's too many cooks in that kitchen right now. Like, they can't find chemistry. No one, in terms of the guys playing on the second and third pairing, can get in a groove because guys are getting funneled in and out of the lineup like crazy.
Yes, absolutely. And I asked Morgan Riley about that point blank last week because I noticed his ice time is way down. And I said, what do you think of this for your rhythm? And he just said, it's different. And Morgan Riley is not a man of few words. He's someone who usually has a lot to say. So I thought that spoke volumes. That was the answer. It's different. That's all he had to say. So I don't know how happy all these defensemen are with this big reduction in their ice time right now.
Another name that's popping up there is Matthew Knies. We've heard about him all season, turning pro. What kind of impact could he have, if any?
I think there is potential for an immediate impact here. If you think about the Leafs and their forward depth, it's been sort of a revolving door all throughout the lineup at the left wing. And he's sort of considered a unicorn by scouts. He has a very unique skill set. He's a big guy, but he's got soft hands. So he can bring the size, the physicality, but also a nice scoring touch, which means you could play him on any different line, really, assuming he's ready for prime time. I could see an impact kind of like Chris Kreider coming out of college in 2012. He had 5 goals in the playoffs. So I wouldn't be surprised if Matthew Knies is making the impact once he turns pro, which will be after the NCAA tournament is over.
Connor McDavid, we just talked about him a little bit. Year 8 of his NHL career coming to a close at some point here, and we have not seen him wear a Team Canada jersey as a professional player. You got to go back, and we have an article up at Daily Faceoff about McDavid's comments yesterday. He's wearing his World Junior jersey. That's the only photo you can find of the guy representing Team Canada. It is insane. I'll preface this. I know the global pandemic kind of threw some things for a loop, but still, Connor McDavid sounding off after the sports world was buzzing about the Shohei Ohtani versus Mike Trout at bat that ended the World Baseball Classic. McDavid kind of saying, hey, this is another sign that we got to figure it out. The sport of hockey, the NHL, needs to get back to having some kind of best on best tournament. I think the NHL has quite frankly used a lot of things, even the pandemic to some extent, as an excuse. And it's not really that big of a reason for why they couldn't pull off events like this. To me, there should be nothing standing in the way of next fall or whenever you want to do it, a World Hockey or World Cup of Hockey. Put it in Toronto. There's 2 rinks there you can use. Players are always coming through that area. To me, the NHL is just lining up lame excuses and not getting this done. Or do you have any hope that they'll figure it out in the near future here, Matt?
I'm not overly hopeful, and it's really sad. Connor McDavid, it's not like he speaks out on many issues, but there's almost nothing that makes him perk up and express himself like the concept of best on best. He really cares about it, and that's telling if your biggest superstar feels this way. And like you said, Tyler, it's all about excuses. And right now, the big excuse is the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The NHL has been uncomfortable going forward with a World Cup because they don't know what will happen in terms of the Russian participation. Will they have to bar certain players from participating? And because of that, we can't get the guarantee of a 2024. And what's troublesome about that is if you start thinking about 2025, well, then you're only a year away from the next Winter Olympics. Is the NHL willing to pause its schedule 2 years in a row? I don't think so. So I think you're going to get one or the other if that happens. So if you do get the 2025 World Cup, maybe that puts the 2026 Olympics in jeopardy, which would also be too bad. So unfortunately, my spirit is being broken. I was usually the optimist about best on best, but the NHL just doesn't seem to have the appetite for putting the effort in. I see no reason why they couldn't make it happen for next year without Russia.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like an easy one, right? To say, hey, we're not having Russian athletes, or don't let them play under their flag. Have them do what the Olympics did, right? When they had the doping scandal, like, hey, you can play as the hockey player. I don't know how you would do it, but there's ways around it. It would just involve some work. And even the whole, like, the planning of it, blah, blah, blah. This is the league that did a great job putting on an entire tournament with way more teams in a bubble in the middle of a pandemic. You're telling me you cannot figure something out in Toronto or in a Vancouver? Just pick a big Canadian market, put it there, have these guys show up 2 weeks before they would go to their cities for training camp and do a good, proper event. It makes no sense, and hockey fans are being robbed of some really, really great best on best moments. It's a damn shame. Let's move along to our big segment today and get to the number crunch. Cam Charron and the Number Crunch. Always a pleasure to welcome you back to the show, Cam. We spent a little bit of the first part of the show talking about Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers, but you want to zero in on another Pacific Division team. A few weeks ago, you were on the show talking about how you saw the Kings as a team that was about to regress because of their strong record in 1-goal games. Since then, add Korpisalo, add Gavrikov. They're 7-0-2, best team in the NHL. I'll put you on the spot. What did you get wrong, Cam?
Oh man, what didn't I get wrong? Basically, there's a lot of things that's happened with the Kings after they've added Vlad Gavrikov, but I think the biggest thing for me is that it's kind of pushed Sean Durzi out of the lineup. He was playing on a second pair role for them, and I just think that he wasn't the type of player to be able to handle NHL forwards. And now that he's been able to move down, we'll get to it a little bit later, but we'll see the difference in their defensive pairings. But just obviously a lot of things, like they're shooting a lot better. They're shooting the lights out actually at 5-on-5, and their save percentages, of course, jumped as well. But just also as well, they have so much depth throughout the lineup. They have so many strong forwards. It's not just that top line of Kopitar and Kempa, who they've been having some fantastic seasons, but you look down the lineup. Quentin Byfield's been playing great for them. Their fourth line, Carl Grundstrom. they just been getting all these pieces throughout. And there was an interesting piece on The Athletic yesterday about whether hockey's a strong link or a weak link game. And the thing with the Kings is that they're sorry. Can you guys hear me right now?
Yeah, we got you.
Or is my
No problem.
okay, good. My internet's been a little wonky. But yeah, the thing with the Kings is that they don't have a lot of really strong players on that team. They don't have a lot of superstars in the 80th percentile in wins above replacement or better, or our approximation of wins above replacement. So it's basically like a lot of very strong depth pieces that have really been able to drive this team forward. And what's interesting for me is it's their depth, but also their strength of schedule. They're 7-0-2 in the last 9, but they've only played 2 playoff teams in that span. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Florida from last year, where they only played 4 games against playoff teams after the trade deadline. So we didn't get a really good read on exactly what the changes that the deadline did to them. So we'll see, so just kind of being able to beat up on some weaker opponents. They beat Colorado, that was fine. But they haven't really played those, and they've also wrapped up the entire season against the Eastern Conference, and those are the toughest teams. Power play's been good all year. Penalty kills really their only weakness their penalty kills their only weakness right now. They're still 21st even since the deadline in that regard. And what I wanted to point out about the defense pairs was just the scoring chance against per 60 minutes against the first pair. Has been strong all season, and really you can see the improvement when they moved from Durzi to Gavrikov on the second pair. We see a big decline in. I had a chart for this. We have a big decline. Here we go. So we see a big decline in. I'm nothing with my visuals. The Durzi Roy pair before was above NHL average in terms of scoring chances against per 60 minutes, and obviously it's better with Gavrikov. The third pair, that's Alex Edler and Sean Walker per view. They don't really play a whole lot of minutes, so I'm not going to worry too much about that, especially as we get to the playoffs when your third pair just doesn't really play all that much. And the one thing I want to say, a really underappreciated player in the NHL right now on that first pair, it's Drew Doughty, of course, a lot of accolades. Everyone knows who he is. The guy on the left side of the pairing, Mikey Anderson, who, according to Corey Schneider of all3zones.com, shout out to his work. He's one of the top defenders in the NHL in terms of zone denials, very strong defensive player, maybe not getting a ton of accolades right now. I think he's really locked down one of the top defensive top pairings in hockey. A lot of the times we'll find that those top pairs actually give up a lot more scoring chances because they happen to play against the top pair. They play against top lines. That's not really happening in Los Angeles. Mikey Anderson, Drew Doughty have been doing a fantastic job all season, and it's really shown up in the goals against as well.
Cam, I wanted to pivot and ask you about the NHLPA player poll that came out earlier this week. And Alexander Barkov is picked as the most underrated player in the NHL. This is a guy who was captain of the President's Trophy winners last year. He's got a Selke trophy. What do you think of that idea of Barkov being quote unquote underrated?
I think it's an awful thing that we just turn on we make the best player on a Sunbelt team as the most underrated. I don't think that's how we should think about it at all. No, I don't think any casual fan wouldn't be able to tell you that Alexander Barkov is a top 10, top 5 center in this league, and I think it's it's really stretching the definition of what underrated means. As you said, this guy has been getting all these votes. Left and right. Generally, I found that the underrated players, they just linger in the Sun Belt, and then they wind up on the Canucks, and they aren't very good. I think the player that's actually the most underrated in the NHL right now, and I kind of realized this after this goal last night against Sam Girard, where he completely cooked Girard, is Sidney Crosby. He's a guy that is probably he's probably dragging the Penguins to the playoffs right now. He's really been the only consistent force for the Penguins at 5-on-5 all season long. He's just been maintaining that 55% on ice goals for percentage. Malkin isn't having a great season at 5-on-5, and the depth has been atrocious. And yet Pittsburgh is still right there. Big win over Colorado last night. And he's, it's just been driven by Crosby completely. He's 10th in scoring over the last 3 seasons. He's barely sniffed any end of season awards ballots. I think he should, obviously the award's going to go to McDavid this year, the Hart. That's no question for me. But I think that Crosby should show up as 3rd, 4th, 5th on a lot of ballots. And I don't know if he's getting a ton of buzz right now, but I just think at the end of his career, we're going to look back at, he's closing on 1,500 career points. He won the scoring title or the Rocket Richard in 4 separate seasons. We're going to see, he only won 2 Hart trophies. That doesn't seem like enough for Sidney Crosby. He's one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, and a point with Barkov, too. He finished 3rd in the most complete player voting as well, which would contradict the idea that he's underrated as well. Just quickly, final 60 seconds of the hit here, Cam. The Panthers, down the stretch, what are you looking for from them as they try to get into the playoffs?
Well, this isn't a team that I've been able to watch a whole bunch because I'm really only able to focus on the teams playing the Canucks and the Leafs, unfortunately, with the work I've taken on. But I get to see the Panthers twice in the next 2 weeks here, and they were a team that could really outscore their problems last year. They weren't able to do that at the start of this year, and I think you guys touched on it earlier. This is a recipe for disaster. Whoever is starting for the Leafs tonight, probably Matt Murray, is going to see a lot of rubber. Florida's one of the top scoring teams in the league. And since all the changes, Toronto's just been bleeding shots against. I think there's a lot of various reasons for that. But just the fact that Florida's been able to outscore their problems. They've been able to really settle into what their top 6 looks like. Anton Lundell has come around. He's looking like the player he was last year. This is a very good hockey team. And I think that if you're at the top of the Eastern Conference right now, you're really hoping that Pittsburgh can put it all together and keep Florida out of the playoffs.
Fair enough. There you go, Cam. Appreciate your work. Love the insight. As always, we'll chat again next week.
Yeah. See you guys.
Our guy Jeremiah, nice and fired up in the chat. Sidney Crosby's not underrated. You media guys never stop talking about Crosby. Colorado's missing their entire right side. Makar Manson Johnson, the TNT broadcast, said his name 12,000 times last night. Hey, man, I do kind of agree with you on that. He does add Jesper Bratt, super underrated. I would agree with that as well, Jeremiah. Daily Faceoff inbox question time, Matt Larkin, hashtag AskDFO. Brad Marchand deleted his Twitter account. He joked in a media conference that he didn't want to pay for it. This feels like a guy who is just zeroing in ahead of a playoff run. But the question is, fill in the blank. Marchand deactivating his Twitter is blank.
It means I have to use the word is a sign that he means business. So if you look at the Boston Bruins, Brad Marchand, he wins a cup in 2011 as a rookie. He loses in the final in 2013 and 2019. This is his best shot while Patrice Bergeron, his buddy, and David Krejci are still there. And Marchand, we know he's very active on Twitter. He's going after those trolls. Maybe it became a distraction for him. It sort of reminds me, if you're a baseball fan, the Toronto Blue Jays taking away the home run jacket this year because it's a sign that they mean business. And that's the vibe I'm getting from Brad Marchand, that he wants to focus on trying to go all the way this year.
I'll say Marchand deactivating his Twitter is bad for us, Matt. I feel like we've been able to rely on a good, solid Brad Marchand take to turn into an article like once every 2 weeks so far this season, and now we won't get that? Damn. It's too bad for all the content creators out there, because Brad Marchand on Twitter was entertaining, and I'd even say it was good for the sport to have one guy who is outspoken and is okay buying into his villain role.
I couldn't agree more. We don't have enough players who are willing to stick their necks out and just show personality. And I love that Marchand was embracing the villain role. It was super entertaining on Twitter. So I'm hoping maybe by the offseason that the account makes a comeback.
Yeah, me too. Let's move along. Pointsbet daily bets. Another sweep yesterday. I am red hot for honestly one of the first times in a while. So I lined up another couple plays for tonight, starting with a road dog in the New York Rangers. They're taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. And I honestly think this one could be priced at a pick'em when you look at how these two teams are playing right now. Rangers 6-3-1 in their last 10. Yeah, the Canes are 7-3-0, but I like the Rangers because they've been a good road team so far this season. And, Hurricanes, no Svechnikov. I think that should move the line a little bit as well. Why not take a stab at the Rangers plus 125? I love getting a good team at plus money on the road. And I also have a player prop for tonight. I'm doing the over 1.5 shot prop parlay. Taylor Radish, Pavel Buchnevich. Radish has been one of my favorite bets all season. His line is 1.5. So is Buchnevich. They've both hit it a majority of the games in their last 10. I like the spot. Play them together. It's plus 145 for Radish and Buchnevich with their shot props. So that and the Rangers give me another couple solid plus money bets this evening. Mr. Larkin, I will throw it back to you to wrap up our show with some garbage time.
Okay, for garbage time, Tyler, I want to address the Chicago Blackhawks' decision to sort of sit out the Pride Night festivities, if you will. There won't be any warm-up jerseys, anything like that. And to me, we could go into a debate about just this sort of rise in homophobic ideologies dating back to when Ivan Provorov sat out. But even just beyond that, I just want to call out the sport right now. It just feels like the NHL in particular, they are insulting our intelligence with this parade of excuses that are just, they're contradictory. They don't make sense. You look at James Reimer on the grounds of his religion. He works on the Sabbath. He wears clothing that has two types of cloth. And then now last night, the Chicago Hawks are trying to protect their Russian players for their safety. The San Jose Sharks, the same game where James Reimer sat out for his reasons, they had 3 Russian players playing in that game. Now we're saying that, those players were safe. There's 3 Blackhawks players that weren't safe. I just think if you're going to have an ideology that is homophobic, just be upfront about it. At least acknowledge that, because it's already insulting enough. And this is just, to me, it's just sad. It's so thinly veiled. And the other thing is the NHL claiming to respect individuals' choices. That was the initial sentiment when Provorov made his stance. And yet you have a team in Chicago actually not respecting the allies, the LGBTQ allies' choices by removing the ability to wear these sweaters.
Great
so
point.
Again, contradictory messaging. I'm really sick of it. If you're not going to be on the side of the allies, at least be honest that you're choosing with the side that is bigoted.
Yeah, that's a great point. The whole we respect individual choices. If Provorov or whoever don't want to wear it, that's their call. Okay, but now for the Hawks, no one's allowed to wear it. Like, it's very weird, and it sucks that, again, you almost saw it coming when Provorov did his thing, and that's why I was so fired up about that, is because he opened the door for this kind of stuff to keep happening. And listen, whatever side of the debate you're on, I think we can all agree that it's just so annoying that we need to have these debates in hockey. I really wish this wouldn't have become a story, but yet here we are in 2023. Arguing over stuff like this. It's wildly annoying that the sport of hockey can't get out of its own way. The NHL loves using Russia as an excuse, whether it's for this or for why they can't have a best-on-best tournament. It's coming in handy, I suppose, which is a terrible way to put it. That's a wrap on today's show. Great work today, Matt Larkin. Great work, everyone in the YouTube chat who was nice and fired up as well. It is a big night in the NHL. Plenty of games with playoff implications. You enjoy that. We'll be back right here tomorrow at noon Eastern time to break it all down.
Thanks for tuning in to Daily Faceoff Live. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode.